Good evening. And I say good evening because this is so late and I've procrastinated again. I've left this right until the last minute. It is 12 o'clock and I have to be up in the morning at 5 because I'm going on a school trip with my daughter, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to it. But had I not procrastinated for the last 3 hours, I could have got this done at a regular hour and I wouldn't have felt so tired and lack of energy to do this. But we are where we are, and I'm dedicated to the cause. I am going to stay consistent, even if that means showing up with not much energy and feeling tired and, yeah, unbothered. And again, I don't really know what I'm going to speak about, but this week has been really interesting for me since posting the first week's YouTube video. I scheduled it so it went out the next day so I could really detach from the ego and the feeling that I needed to check any metrics to see how the video is doing. And I still haven't looked at any metrics. I double checked to see if it's public, but I kind of winced and closed one eye and put my hand over any information that I could have seen, any metrics, because I'm really in a phase where something is wanting to come through and I am being called in a direction. It's still very unclear what that direction is exactly. I know that there is a calling to be more on film or like on YouTube or to show up more. And the only way I can stay true to myself and my art and whatever this is, this open journal diary entry, is to stay away from the metrics for now. I think there will need to be a phase two of this. When I say phase two, I can't avoid metrics forever, but I need to stop looking at anything like that for now because I do feel like metrics are a double-edged sword and they can really contort and constrict creativity. Because if I were to see that my first video did really, really well, then my brain would naturally want to analyze what went well and try to replicate that because it's a pattern machine. It wants to feel good most of the time, and so it would want to produce more of that because it thinks that the audience like that, so they clearly would like more of the same. And the same goes for the other side. So if I had a video that didn't do so well or did worse than the video before, my brain is going to try and interpret that, keep me safe, see that as a threat, and tell me to not produce content like that. So for me at this point in this journey, for whatever this is in this unfolding, I know that metrics are not healthy. They are not going to nourish this type of art. They're not going to nourish my expression here. They're only going to fabricate or create stories around this and around the content. So as I've been thinking more about that and more about metrics and how they do often control what we put out into the world, I have been experimenting with not looking at metrics completely. So, with my personal Instagram page, I have been practicing what it feels like to just post things that I want to post in the moment, or I've been really experimenting with creating art from some photography that I had done on the weekend, and that felt so good to create. It felt really fun. I was in flow state. I loved what I created, and then to post it without then or promising myself that I'm not going to check any likes, I'm not going to check any comments, I'm literally going to post and ghost, was for the first day very difficult. I felt all of the fiending type energy circulating, trying to convince me that it was time to check. It's time to check now. Why don't you just check? Just have a little check. Just have a little check. And I didn't. And then the second day I posted something and I was a little bit more brave and I posted a caption that was, nothing crazy, but it was quite of a statement. And it was something that, again, that came intuitively. It was the thing that wanted to be said. So I said it. But again, I think it made me fear being judged for that little comment or being judged for the post that I had shared. But again, I didn't check. And I felt the second day or the day after that day, the need and the strength of, I'm going to call it an addiction, a habit. I don't know if it's an addiction. I mean, it probably is to some extent, but it softened. It definitely got less. And then the third thing that I posted, I didn't give a fuck. I was just like, well, I like it. And so it really is pointless, this whole like a metric thing. Like it's so pointless to care how many likes you get on a post. And I feel, when I say this, I feel so um I just I don't feel embarrassed to speak about this, but I hate that I have cared so much. And I wish I didn't, but I do. And I'm here going through this process where I have to uncare. And that to me doesn't feel good, but it is what it is. We're here. So, but what came up, which was really interesting to me, was on the third day of posting something, I really sat with the urges that were coming up to check. And I was like, why do you want to check? Like, what really would change about the thing you've posted if you were to get 50 likes? Like, surely that makes no difference to the way you felt about, we'll call it art, the way you felt about the art when you posted it. So why is there this need to consistently check in and get those dopamine hits? And I thought originally it was for validation. And so I would really hold off on a lot of content creating because I was scared that I was seeking validation and it was actually my ego in the driver's seat rather than my soul. And, there's nothing wrong with parts of the ego, but I was trying to identify and discern whether it was ego that was amplified and doing it from a state of fear, validation, but or it was me wanting to have creative expression. And I've taken some time over the years to really sift and sort through which one's which. And I still get confused and I still sometimes go down one path and I think it's pure and I think it's coming from the soul, and then the ego realigns itself and attaches itself to this new idea or new creative endeavor or new business and wants to seek an identity within that and a label and something to be proud of. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but it can sometimes get in the way of the art, hence the metrics, hence the wanting to check. But when I was really tuning into what those feelings were this time around and being really still with it, I realized that that isn't actually the story that's running in the background. It isn't validation. I don't care much for people liking what I like. I am quite comfortable with being different now at this point in my life. But I think what I tapped into was I was checking engagement to check that I was still safe. That may sound really extreme, but in a really dull down way, my nervous system was trying to check in and seek to see if, if there's any threats, if I'm safe, if I've been too much, or if I have upset someone, or been like controversial in some way, or it's just micro check-ins of like, okay, things are still okay on here, right? Like I'm still safe. Like everything's all good, yeah? Check again. It's like, oh, they're really liking it. Great. Okay. And it gives you a bit of a buzz. And like, right. And if you don't, it starts spiraling you, and your nervous system gets put out of whack. And so when I identified that, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And that actually feels more true, that I am consistently checking to make sure that I'm safe with the content that I'm putting out. Again, it's a tribal instinct of putting yourself out there means that you have more chance of being judged and criticized. And so if you're putting things out there about maybe things that you love so deeply, for someone else not to like it, I mean, I'm not too, it's so tricky sometimes to work out where these thoughts are coming from. The posting of it, I'm not too bothered about, but there's definitely a safety element. I'm still working through it, as you can tell. But there was definitely some new insights that came from this little experiment, which I'm going to continue, and I'm going to continue it with this YouTube channel as well. I'm not going to look at metrics for at least 3 months, because it's nothing about that. I'm not doing this to make sure I've got the hook, or make sure that I'm doing something trending so that I get the most amount of followers or the most amount of likes or subscribers. It's not that. It's just me practicing being more online and showing up in this whole process and the unfolding of whatever the hell wants to come through. Metrics do not help with that. They don't, they will hinder that, I think, personally. So that's been a really interesting part of the journey, to loosen my addiction to the dopamine crack hits, which feel so good, but they're actually producing a lot of fear. And at first, when I wasn't checking, I felt like I needed to check to soothe the fear. And now I'm seeing it the other way. Like if I check, I'm kind of amplifying the fear. I'm strengthening the belief that we need to consistently check in. This is going to sound really dramatic. Am I sounding really dramatic? I mean, I think this is what's going on in my mind. Yeah, it's growing up in this social media world is a bit of a fuckery sometimes, especially when the ego loves that kind of thing. The ego loves all that. So that's been a part of my process this week. I also had a really fun manifestation amongst all of the fear that was coming up after I posted the video. I felt lots of fear. It was making me feel quite embarrassed and quite cringe. Like the cringe was so amplified that those two as a combination, the fear, the embarrassment, the cringe, was a sensation of disgust. And that is like the worst. It really truly makes me feel disgusting. So, but amongst all that, I had a really interesting manifestation this week. So I woke up one morning and I had this really intense desire to buy a sofa. And up until this point, I've lived in my new home now for a year, and I've just had this most amazing, gorgeous, beautiful, big dining table in my kitchen living area, which I have absolutely loved. And I've not had the desire at the moment to buy a sofa. It's just been just a treat to be there with my big windows and the sun beaming in. But this particular morning, I woke up with the strongest urge to get a sofa. So I was like, okay, I'm going to follow the scent because this is super strong, and found the sofa that I wanted. But as I went to pay by, I noticed that the energy that I was purchasing with was fear, because it wasn't in the budget to buy a sofa. It's near Christmas and it's just not in the budget to be buying a sofa. So I thought to myself, okay, how do I still make this purchase, but how do I get in alignment with this sale? So I did a focus wheel, which is taught by Abraham Hicks. And essentially what you do is you write in the middle the desired feeling. So mine was that I wanted to feel really joyful purchasing this sofa. And then you write 12 statements that would support that. So mine were, what did I said, I wrote down, clients have come out of nowhere before, multiple times. So why couldn't they just come out of thin air again? Or if I believe that money is energy and energy cannot be destroyed or created, then surely this is just a movement of energy. And when I felt like I'd got in full alignment with the purchase, I pressed buy. Within 3 hours, I had an old client reach out to me and he wanted one session top up and he needed it now. He wanted it the next week. And so I went and back through his paperwork to check what his original price was so I could divide it by 3, because normally it's 3 sessions for what I do. And I run a business. I don't think I said that in the first one because it cut off halfway. And I don't want to edit these. I want them to just be really raw. So I just posted it anyway. I was like, okay, the momentum's gone. I'm not re-recording this. But I run a business. I run a couple of businesses, but one of them is a hair loss clinic. And so the treatments come in 3. And so I split his overall price by 3. It worked out the exact price by the pound of the sofa. So at this point, I'm chuckling to myself, like, okay, I get the memo, I get the message. 2 days later, the sofa arrives. And when I opened it, there was only half of the sofa, and then there was a footstool in the other half. So I emailed them. I found it quite funny. I emailed them just saying, look, this has happened. You might want to come and collect the footstool, but could you please send me the right bit of the sofa? So they emailed back just saying, we're so sorry, you can keep the footstool. And we'll send you out the other half of the sofa. Really sorry about that. I was like, amazing. This is amazing. Thank you. So they sent me the other half of the sofa. And when I put it together, I realized, because I used to work in garment technology, which is we work alongside the designers in fashion, work alongside the designers to make sure that what they design is in the correct fabric, with the correct stitching, with the correct supplier. So my eyes are really tuned to difference in shades of fabrics, especially if they're put together in different shades and stitching. So because they were 2 different batches, they were very, very slightly. I don't think anyone else would have noticed, but I sent them a video just to say, look, I just want you to be aware that these are 2 different batches they've come from. And they sent me 40% back. So I essentially got a footstool and a sofa for nothing, because I had a client book in, and then I got 40% back. So I was like, okay, that's been fun. I enjoyed that whole journey, and I'm going to play more with these guidance, nudges, excitement, things that are coming through. Hence being on YouTube. Like, this is all coming from a pull in this direction. Like, it's not necessarily in these bouts of excitement, but it's like a non-stop background energy or message or calling. It's hard to really put it into words, but it's just a knowing to move in this direction is all I could say, even if I have no real idea what I'm here to speak about. So that's fun. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit more and stay curious and stay open-minded to all possibilities being possible, rather than this fixed mindset that I may have had I had followed the fear energy of, okay, this is not the right time, it's Christmas, I've got loads of things to organize and that all costs money. Instead, I aligned my energy with the desire. And I think that is the first time it has happened in such a short window. I've manifested so many things, but it's felt like they have taken time to build and get to that point. Whereas this one was instant, it was within the same day. So that was very cool, very exciting. But I am going to head to bed now because I'm so tired. I'm glad that I came on here, because at the start of this, having procrastinated for so many hours, I couldn't be asked. But in 6 months' time, I'm going to be grateful that I kept going, because it's going to be all clear and I'm going to know why I'm feeling the calling to come on YouTube. So if you're here and you've landed, then thank you for watching. And if it resonates, then nice to meet you. It's nice to meet people that resonate. And I will see you for week 3, chapter 3 of the 6-month open journal. So thanks for tuning in. Bye.